It's the final day of campaigning, and Kamala Harris is headed to the battleground state that offers the biggest prize in this election, Pennsylvania. Win here and you very likely win the White House. So she's crisscrossing the towns and cities with one final pitch to voters, echoing her message last night in Michigan, the other Midwest state she must win to claim victory.
And we have momentum. It is on our side. Can you feel it?
Tell Kamala that you've had enough.
Donald Trump was in the battleground state of North Carolina this morning before he too heads to Pennsylvania. His message, less about hope, more about her.
We're not going to take it anymore. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out.
And his first stop in Pennsylvania, the city of Reading, where Puerto Rican locals, nearly a third of the population, are still seething from being called garbage by a comedian at a Trump rally the week before. We got there ahead of Trump on Saturday night, when the Puerto Rican community was holding a rally of its own. And boy, Trump's ears must have been burning.
You have no respect for us, Donald. You are not fit to lead this country, and we will make sure you lose on Tuesday.
Eddie Moran, the city's first Latino mayor, himself a Puerto Rican, said the garbage insult will motivate people sitting on the fence to go out and vote. So will this make any difference?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that this is going to be an opportunity for those that perhaps were undecided. For those that didn't feel the energy to go out to vote, they're going to go out and vote in anger.
Because this is personal.
My message for Donald Trump is you messed with the wrong people. Because if there's one thing you have to understand about Puerto Ricans, is that you have to come to us with respect.
Across Pennsylvania, there are now nearly 600,000 Latinos eligible to vote. And when you consider Joe Biden took the state by a mere 80,000 ballots, you can see why their support is critical. Hence, Harris will also be visiting Reading today and sent this ad specifically targeted to the Puerto Rican community ahead of her stop.
No somos basura, somos más.
And there's evidence her push may be working, or at least Trump's trash talk isn't.
You know, I was really going to vote for Trump, but, you know, like, you're supposed to be a leader. Somebody that talks like that ain't no leader in my book. I don't care what race you are. That's just unacceptable.
Yet you're still thinking of voting for him?
Not after today, not after I learned this.
So one more voter for Harris. But if the path to the White House does run through Pennsylvania, she'll need to woo voters outside the Democratic-leaning cities as well. Travel 20 minutes outside the city of Reading and you're in rural red Trump country, which is indicative of the state of Pennsylvania, red and blue side by side, which explains why the polling here is so tight and why every single vote will count, and perhaps why Republicans, still bitter at the result of the last election, are already launching investigations about the election process and even lawsuits ahead of polling day. And it's happening right here in polling stations in Pennsylvania, where Republicans in numerous counties are crying foul over voter registration fraud and even voter suppression, all amplified publicly and inaccurately by Donald Trump.
Because they've already started cheating in Lancaster. They've cheated. We caught them with 2,600 votes. No, we caught them cold.
And if he says it, many of the faithful, like those we met outside Sunday's service yesterday, not only believe it, but repeat it.
In Lancaster County, they had 2,500 ballots that were sent in, and all the names did not match, the signatures didn't match the names, and yeah, it's a little questionable.
I do believe there was cheating last time. I know there was cheating last time.
But the people that are saying there's already stuff going on in Pennsylvania, why do you think they're saying that?
Because they're the people that are worried that they're going to lose, and they just want to give themselves an excuse.
Are you worried if President Trump loses that things could get ugly?
Well, that's why I'm here coming to church, because I pray that we can peacefully have an election and it's fair.
And if he loses?
We'll see what happens.
America and the world is braced for what happens when voters go to the polls tomorrow. in an election that offers the starkest choice and yet is the closest in modern American history, where both sides see the other's victory as the beginning of the end.
Well, joining me now here on the roof is Matt Toll, who ran Senator Marco Rubio's campaign for the Republican nomination in 2016, and Susan Platt, who was Chief of Staff to Joe Biden when he was a senator. Welcome to you both. So at the beginning of the program, we said that there are two very divergent tones in these sort of final hours and these final speeches. One is, hope and change, let's stay happy. She didn't even mention him by name. And the other one is sort of calling her names very much, but also channeling the rage that exists in much of America. Who's got the tone right, Susan?
I think Kamala has the tone right. If I could right now, if I could sing, I would sing since we're on the rooftop, because we've got two polls, one from Iowa today, which shows Kamala Harris closing very strong, and the Marist poll just came out a few minutes ago showing us 4 points up nationally. Now, I know that's not, we have to go state by state, but if I was going our way, it could be a good night for us, a very good night, and we could see heels in the White House.
But that Iowa poll was a few days ago, wasn't it? I think it was Friday night.
Saturday.
Saturday night, but it's an outlier of a poll, isn't it?
Well, let's see. Ann Seltzer's always right, almost always right within a point.
Okay. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I think the voters decide what the tone is, and what we've seen.
Well, where do you think the tone is? Do you think he's got it right?
I think if he's focusing in on the economy, inflation, border security, that's the right tone. And I think in these final hours, that's what he should be talking about.
But he's not talking about that, is he? He's talking about that and lots of other things. And he's calling her names, and he's calling her stupid, and he's saying the election's already been stolen before the final votes have even been cast.
Well, we've seen a lot of name calling in this race. We saw President Biden with what many voters took, calling Trump supporters garbage. So look, the bottom line is this: I honestly think that voters right now are less concerned about the rhetoric and about the records of these candidates. And I honestly think the question is this: is this race about policy or is it about personality? And I think a lot of voters out there who decide this race, they care more about policy.
So he might win on policy, especially when it comes to the economy, because people felt they were better off 4 years ago. But he loses on personality, doesn't he?
But the voters who are not going to vote for him based on that aren't going to vote for him anyways. And this race comes down to those select 2% undecided voters, low to mid propensity voters. And I think there's a lot of optimism right now among the Trump campaign. You're seeing early voting up for the Trump campaign right now compared to 2016 and 2020. Those are big signs, I think, that they're going in the right direction here.
Susan, she's got a very difficult circle to square, doesn't she? She's got to be both an incumbent, she's got to defend the record of her administration, and she has to be a change agent. And has she really been able to do that?
Oh, I think she has. I think the American people, look, it's been baked in, 47-47, we're a split country. They know Donald Trump. What we're fighting for is the final 10%. And Kamala Harris has introduced herself, brought her policies out on the opportunity economy, which I find very difficult to say, talk about small businesses, women, women, women. All the men talk about it's the economy, and it is the economy. We all feel we need to do a better job. But women are coming out to vote, and I do believe Donald Trump's comments in the last week or so, denigrating so many people, has changed a lot of the evangelicals in Iowa, which means it's changed a lot of the evangelicals in other Midwest parts of the country. So I think that will be something I'm going to look for on election night.
People keep talking about women, not just in this election, but in other elections as well. We had security mums and soccer mums and all that. But what about the men that he's been appealing to, white men and African-American men, that haven't always gone to the polls but might do so now?
Well, we'll see if he can get them out. I think women when you take a right away from somebody that they fought for 50 years, that's pretty hard to overcome. And that's pretty hard for us to sit down on.
Okay. Are men going to show up for Trump?
Well, I think if you look at the polling right now, it looks like they are. Now, look, here's the deal. There are two lanes of votes that both these campaigns care about right now. It's the early vote, which Republicans have been doing far better in compared to 2020 and 2016. And it's tomorrow, Election Day voting. Republicans tend to do quite well with Election Day voting. So, look, I think here's the deal. Those are two lanes that these campaigns are focused on. Tomorrow's a big day, particularly for the Republican Party and the Trump campaign, given that historically Republicans turn out on Election Day. But based on the data, we're seeing, President Trump right now making inroads in Hispanic voters, black voters, young voters. And with men right now, particularly young men under the age of 30, he's at 50% with them.
But if he loses this election, is it because of Roe v. Wade, the three conservative justices that he appointed to the court who overturned abortion rights in the court, and women, a majority of women, won't have forgiven him for that?
Well, there's no question the issue of abortion is the issue that voters care about in this race. And look, he said that he's not going to sign a national abortion ban. That's what he has said throughout this campaign. But look, as much as that issue matters in this race, there are other issues that these voters are focused in on that if you look at all the polling in this race, top their list. The economy, inflation, and border security. And on those issues, former President Trump right now has been leading on those issues. He's been leading on those issues throughout this campaign. That's why many would argue he is having great success in the polls.
So why is it, Susan, that an economy that actually in terms of the headline numbers is doing quite well, even the Wall Street Journal, which is conservative, was saying the other day, well done America. The Economist on its front page was saying this is an exceptional economy, and yet, there are dozens of people I've personally spoken to in the last 10 days in the swing states who says we're not feeling the improvement and they're not feeling our pain, and by that they mean your candidate.
Well, we need to do more. Obviously, we all need to do more. We're coming back from a pandemic, once in 100 years pandemic.
But could you have done more early in the campaign?
Well, I'm not sure that we could. We're leading the world in terms of coming back in our economy from COVID. But I was here a couple blocks away last Tuesday, and the feeling and the people you saw pouring into the ellipse was something I've never seen in my life. I think we now make a choice where America wants to be and who we want to be. And I believe we're going to pick hope and change over.
Okay, briefly and finally to both of you. First to you, Susan. If she loses, will your former boss, Joe Biden, go down as the worst, desk blocker in history? Because he should have bowed out much earlier when it was obvious that he couldn't run.
No, he brought our economy back. He saved so many of us from losing our lives from COVID. And we've not gone into a recession. We've not gone into a depression. And we're coming back strong.
Okay.
We will not.
Matt, if your guy loses, Donald Trump, could it be because of an off-color joke told by a comedian in Madison Square Garden insulting Puerto Ricans, and those Puerto Rican swing voters in Pennsylvania, and there are thousands of them, have said no thanks?
Look, he loses this race.
How ironic would that be?
Well, if he loses this race, it's not because of that joke. It was a joke that was poor taste, wasn't funny. And look, the Trump campaign released a statement saying that joke did not align with their values. But look, here's the deal. I think right now, if you're the Trump campaign, you're feeling good going into tomorrow. I think you feel as though you've been leading on the key issues that voters care about, the economy, inflation, and border security. It's a unique election. President Trump has been in the White House, so has Vice President Harris. And I think right now, voters are going to compare and contrast records.
Would you bet your farm on winning tomorrow?
I think if you look at all the indicators, President Trump should win tomorrow night based on most of the indicators.
You're not betting your farm. Would you bet the farm on winning tomorrow? Oh, no one's betting their farm.
Almost.
Cop outs from both of you. My goodness. No, that's it. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed.
I'll tell you what, I think President Trump is poised, if you look at the indicators, poised to have a good night tomorrow night.
Okay, let's see. Matt Terrell, Susan Platt, thank you very much indeed.
High heels in the White House.
Okay, well, one of the things that makes the US elections so unpredictable, you just heard it, and so complex is, of course, that electoral college system. We've talked about it before. It means that the winner of the popular vote doesn't always become president, and some states become far more important than others. Here's how it works. You're not trying to get the most number of votes. It's all about winning the most votes in the electoral college. So whichever candidate gets the majority of the 538 electors, well, they win the White House. The magic number to reach is 270. The way it works is that each state is given a number of electors based on the number of congressional districts they have, plus their 2 US senators. And most states have a winner-takes-all system, giving all their electoral college votes to the winning candidates. The election campaign is fought most fiercely in 7 key swing states that will determine who wins the White House. The victor will almost certainly need to win Pennsylvania with its crucial 19 electoral college votes. It's tight, but Donald Trump has a razor-thin 0.4% lead in the polls there. It's also too close to call in the Rust Belt state of Michigan with its 15 electoral college votes. Kamala Harris has a 1.1% lead in the polls there, but again, that's well within the margin of error. In the Sun Belt states, that includes Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, Trump is narrowly ahead. In 2020, Biden won Georgia with its 16 electoral college votes by just over 11,000 votes. Currently, Trump is leading the polls in Georgia by 1.3%. Now, after his final spin through 3 battleground states today, Donald Trump will return to the sumptuous surroundings of his private club cum super mansion Mar-a-Lago in Florida to once again await his fate. Kieran Woodley is there. Kieran.
Yes, Donald Trump will return here to Mar-a-Lago after his final rally of the campaign in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And that's something of a Donald Trump presidential tradition, because that's the same city, same state where he ended up his 2016 and 2020 campaigns. Now, the Trump team has reasons to be more confident than those previous races. When you look at those swing state polls, Donald Trump was never that close in 2016 or 2020. So they believe that once again he will overperform those polls and he will run away with this, and they've been encouraged by the early vote. But Donald Trump was also in North Carolina today, and he had 3 rallies there over the weekend. That state hasn't gone Democrat since 2008. But Donald Trump narrowly won it in 2020, and maybe there are some jitters about that state and whether Donald Trump can hold on to his own Republican red wall. How does he do that? We know he needs to focus on the economy. He needs to focus on immigration. Those are the issues that he leads on. And yet, we've seen him in recent days going a bit off course. He talks about fear. He talks about the election being stolen. It does get a sense that Donald Trump, he had a campaign, a very professional campaign, which restrained him for months, and now he's kind of off the leash. He's trying to recreate 2016 when he won. The big thing is about on election day, with the vote tomorrow, how does that play out with those undecided, those shy voters? Do those young men who don't normally vote, do they like that bravado? Will they go out and vote for Donald Trump? Or will moderate Republicans, women who might not like any of that and go against their affiliation, their party affiliation, against their own families even, and vote for Kamala Harris? We will, of course, know all the answers to that when the election polls close tomorrow, although the results might take a little bit longer.